Probably just shut the door. Welcome, and let's take a few moments away from our busy lives to reflect upon things that matter to us. We're going to start off by chanting Om 3 times, followed by a prayer, and then get started with our study. सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति शांति शांति। श्रुति स्मृति पुराणानां श्रुति स्मृति पुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम् सर्ववेदान्त सिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। So we are studying Vivekachudamani, and I think last time we completed the verse number 45, and we are looking at verse number 49 right now. Verse 49 says, Ajnana yogat paramatmanastav ह्यानात्मबन्धस्तात एव संसृतिः तयोर्विवेकोदितबोधवह्निः अज्ञानकार्यं प्रदहेत् समूलम्। So this verse is actually occurring in the conversation between the teacher and the student. With context, just a few verses back, the student said, I'm very afraid. And the teacher said, no, don't worry. There is a way that people have used in the past. And I'm going to Tamev Marga Eva Nirdishami. I'm going to show you that way. And then this is verse 49, and I'll talk about it in a little bit. And then after this, the disciple starts asking some questions. For example, for 51, he asks some questions. And then the teaching actually starts with verse number 90, where the teacher will start talking about Anatma first. So that's the context on where this verse appears. In a way, this verse is the beginning of the teaching. It's the summary of what the teacher is talking about. or what our subject matter is. I came early, so I wrote it down on the board. It's not like it was already here, but in order for us to look at it in a little more detail, I've got it up here so that we can go over it word by word, right? So this verse is very loaded, and that's why I wanted to write it down. Swamiji's commentary, and it goes on for a few pages too. It's quite a loaded verse, and it's a verse that will lead to questions and discussion, and that's really what we are trying to do, is get the discussion. Okay, so what I've done is I've done the Sandhi Vichhed. I've broken apart the words so that we can look at them a little more clearly. Some of you study Sanskrit, some of you don't. So I've written the Devanagari script and then also the English script associated with it on the board. And we'll look at the translation of them one by one. Hey, how are you? So the verse, this was verse number 49 we're looking at here. And it says, Ajnana yoga paramatmanah tav hi anatma bandha tat eva samsritihi. So I'm just reading out the words, not just looking at them, we'll take them one by one. Tayoha vivek udit bodhavanihi ajnana karyam pradahet samulam. When you look at it in the write-up, all the words become one, and it's kind of difficult to follow what's being done. So I've broken them apart. And even then, I have not broken them apart fully. Ajnana yoga is actually two words. Paramatmanaha we'll talk about. Tav hi anatma bandha. Anatma bandha is in this case one word. Tat eva samsritihi. Tayoho viveka udit bodhavani. So Ajnana yoga. So let's see, first of all, we can look at the overall understanding of what this verse is saying. This is the teacher telling to the student what really is going on. He's saying that Ajnana yoga. Yoga means because of the connection, or you could say because of the relationship with Ajnana. In this case, how do I translate Ajnana? Ajnana I'm going to translate as due to incorrect conclusions. Incorrect conclusions. Yeah, what different types of ajnana are there? There are so many different types of ajnana, right? I don't know something that I know. As to quote some famous people, there are things that I know I don't know, and then there are things that I don't know that I don't know, right? So there are known unknowns, and then there are unknown unknowns. And a very small subset of that is known unknowns. So what ajnana is this being referred to? Are we talking about something that we have never seen before? Is that ajnana? That means I'm going to introduce a new topic, a new object, a new subject matter to you.
Known unknown.
Yeah, is it a known unknown or is it an unknown unknown? What are we going to talk about? So in this context, that's why I did not translate ajnana as ignorance. Would be ignorance is just shifts the meaning. Doesn't really give you an understanding of what that ajnana truly is. Just as ajnana means ignorance. Okay, so what does ignorance mean? That's why I translated it as incorrect conclusions. Incorrect conclusions. What does that mean? It means that there is something that you have made a conclusion about. And that conclusion is somehow incorrect. Has that happened before? Yeah, I mean, it's not like I've not made an incorrect conclusion about something or jumped the gun or jumped to an incorrect conclusion. In this case, Ajnana Yoga is saying that because of this superimposition of some ignorant conclusions, you have anatma bandha. Bandha in this case means a sense of limitation. A sense of limitation. I use the word sense, not just limitation, because you have a sense of limitation. What exactly is that limitation? You have a feeling. I somehow feel inadequate. I feel that there's something missing. I have a sense of limitation, and anatma is that which is that is not. Of course, we will talk about what atma is in a moment because it's sitting right here. Right? So incorrect conclusions related to something are causing you to have a sense of limitation with respect to yourself. And then he says, Paramatmanah tava. Paramatma. So Paramatma is what? That's a big topic, right? So that's why I said this verse is loaded. Every word in this verse is super loaded. So Paramatma. Okay, what is Paramatma? Help me out. No, I'm on my own. I can do this on my own. Paramatma. Atma that has no limitations. Huh. What does that mean, it has no limitations? That's an interesting. Does space have limitation? What kind of question is that? Is space infinite? Yes. What does that mean when I say that space is infinite? Does space have limitation or does space not have limitation? Are you familiar with the Big Bang theory? You're familiar with the fact that space is expanding and growing. If something is expanding and growing, that means it is bigger than it was before. Fair enough. If it is bigger than it was before, then was it infinite then or is it infinite now? And if it was a Big Bang theory, it started off with a singularity, which means that the concept of space itself was not there. Right? So when we say that which has no limitation, in this case, what do we mean by no limitations? I'll put it to you a little bit differently. Yeah, I'll put it to you like this. So how many meters is 1 second? There's the space-time continuum guy who's going to give me a response. And, of course, I can delve into the space-time continuum and answer that question, perhaps. But the answer and the question are biting at something. They're telling you that there is something that does not have a dimension in which you're searching for a dimension for it. It's not that it does not pertain to that dimension. So when I give you a question, okay, so how many seconds is 1 meter? It depends on what velocity are you moving and who are you? What kind of particle are you? Are you a particle? Are you a wave? Who are you that's trying to traverse this distance? The understanding is one could say that the dimensionality of time in a non-relativistic sense is not connected to the dimensionality of space. One could say that from the perspective of time, the question of limitation to space does not apply. Or from the question of space, the limitation of time to it does not apply. Because it does not fall within that realm of dimensions. Let me put it to you a little bit differently. How big a pot do you need to put all of space in it? How big a pot do I need? Whatever is the size of space that you want to imagine, how big a pot do I need to have in order to put all of space in it? The answer is, what kind of question is that? The pot is in the space of the, what kind of question is that? The question is falling apart because we are struggling with dimensionality. We're struggling with dimensionality. When we say no limitations, do we mean infinite or do we mean that dimension does not apply? That really is the question on the table. When we say, oh, this thing is infinite, what does that mean? And I'm not using param as the sense of the word that it is so large that the limitation does not apply. I'm using it in the sense that that dimensionality does not apply. The dimensionality of space does not apply. The dimensionality of time does not apply. To what? Atma. Paramatma is giving you a clue as to what Atma is. It is that to which limitations do not apply because dimensionality is. So what does not, how can dimensionality not apply? If it had an attribute, then dimensionality would apply. So for example, this table is so many meters long and so many meters wide. Those are its attributes. Now, could you tell me how many meters space is? Well, you're working with dimensions that are not working anymore because the dimensionality no longer applies to it. There is no measurement for it. You have gone orthogonal to the plane of dimensions in which you're talking about. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you. You've gone orthogonal to the dimensions of the plane that we're talking about. So, Paramatma, when I say no limitation, it does not mean an infinite boundary of nothingness. I mean that the concept of that particular attribute does not apply. That attribute does not apply. Isn't that what I said when I said, in a non-relativistic sense, if I ask you, how many seconds is this table long? Say, what kind of question is that? The question is meaningless because that dimension does not apply to it, which means that from that perspective, you could say that it is free of that limitation. So, anatma bandha is a sense of limitation. Paramatma is atma that has no limitations. And in fact, what I mean by no limitations, what I really mean is that it has no attributes. What's an attribute? So simplest thing in the world, right? This stuff is very simple. It's actually not that complex. The simpler you look at it, the better it will be. The deeper it will be, but it's simpler. What is an attribute? I don't know. What is an attribute? Everything is an attribute, right? So if I ask you, what is the color? It's black. If I ask you what is the size, you'll be able to tell me every object has an attribute.
Something using which it can be distinguished from
something else. Absolutely. If something has an attribute, it cannot be something else. Fair enough? The square root of -1 will be the square root of -1. There is no physical object that I can point out to. It lives in your mind. When you square it in your mind, it becomes -1. It has no physical correlation. I don't know if there is an imaginary universe in which it lives. But it sure does live in my head. I have an understanding of what square root of -1 is. And I understand that if I square it, I'll get -1. But whatever that square root of -1 is, it is definitely not the Laplace transform of the function. That is something else. Whatever is an attribute of something, as soon as you place an attribute or something, it is defined. And by its definition, it is limited. Anatma bandha. The sense of limitation that is coming out of your ajnana, incorrect conclusion associated with anatma, the avaroha, the superimposition of the attributes of anatma on atma, which is attributeless. That's the subject matter we're talking about. The superimposition, yoga, the superimposition of the attributes of anatma, which are by definition limited, on something that has no attributes, is ajnana. It's our subject matter. So as I said, this verse is loaded. The teacher actually said everything you wanted to say in one verse, and then he's going to say it again and again and again. Ajnana yoga, but he says, Tava. Tava is you. He says, hey, you are Paramatma. Not that Paramatma. The Paramatma that we talked about here. Attributeless. The one that has no limitations. Limitations will come in when attributes come in. Every attribute by definition is limited. The moment I say space, I don't mean time. The moment I say time, I don't mean heat. The moment I say heat, I don't mean texture. The moment I say texture, I don't mean taste. The moment I say the word attribute, it becomes another. And it becomes limited. Limited by its own definition. The one thing that happens because of this limitation is that if that thing had a sense of self, it would say, I am limited. I'm only the sun. I give light to a lot of these 9 planets, but that's okay. I've seen a bigger sun over there. It gives a lot more. Have you seen that sun? It's big. From where I sit, it looks like an even bigger sun. Right? If it had a sense of self, and it identified itself with being the sun that gives light to the solar system, it would say, I am the sun. And then it would say, I am the sun. Because I've seen another solar system, they have 15 planets. 2 Earths. Now I feel limited. Anatma bandha, the sense of limitation born out of a superimposition of attributes on something that is attributeless. And teacher says, Tava, you are that anatma on which you have superimposed the limitations of this anatma. Tata, therefore, and because of that only, literally it says because of that only, you have samsritihi. What is samsritihi? Samsritihi means again and again life. Huh? How did he connect it back to the cycle of life? He says he connected it back to the circle of life because of these incorrect conclusions about the nature of yourself. You have thrust yourself into a cycle of birth and death. Well, how did I get thrust into a cycle of birth and death? Well, I made the conclusion, incorrect conclusion, that I am this and I am limited. These are my attributes. As soon as I say these are my attributes, I start seeing, oh, I also have flaws. And I also have limitations in order to fix which I will do karma. In order to fix which I will start doing karma. As soon as I start doing karma, I become a karta. And I become a bharta, which means I am also the enjoyer, the experiencer, the person who identifies. My identification with my limitation becomes complete. If I'm sitting there and thinking that I'm limited, that's one thing. The moment I start acting upon it, it becomes concrete. It becomes very real. Because now I'm that which was an imagination, that was a fantasy. I imagined this limitation, but then it became real because I became a karta. And as soon as I became a karta, I became a bharta. And as soon as I became a bharta, I started doing papas and punyas. The law of karma, the doctrine of karma started applying to me, and I found myself doing action and waiting for the results. Right? Because whenever you do action, there are some results that are immediate and some results that are coming, unseen, to be credited to your account later. You immediately get the payment in your checking account, and some it says, yeah, this will appear, it's a superannuity, it will appear every month for the rest of your life. Or it will come a little bit later. Well, if you passed away, who would get the results of those actions? You yourself would say, hey, I did that action in the past. I'm still due. I'm overdue for the results from that action, good or bad. For the bad one, you may say, I don't want it. But for all those actions, there is an overdue person sitting saying, hey, I did this and I did that. The results did not come. Says, all right, here you go. There's another life for you to continue this journey. And that produces the samsriti. So the source of samsriti, the cycle of life and life again, is this incorrect conclusion about the attributes of Atma that have been superimposed and assumed to be that of the self. So the teacher is saying, Paramatmana Tava, you are that attributeless Atma, on which you have Ajnana Yoga, through incorrect conclusions, superimposed the bandha, the limitations of that which is anatma. And that alone has led to samsriti, which is the cycle of life and bondage, so to speak.
So what does param means literally in Sanskrit?
So parama literally means in Sanskrit that which is beyond. So it means orthogonal. It means that to which the sense of limitation does not apply. It does not mean bigger. It does not mean infinite. It means that is beyond. So for example, from the perspective of measurement, space will be param. Objects will be, in the context of space, objects will have sizes and dimensions, and you can have a big object and a bigger object and a biggest object, but space will be param with reference to them because it will say, I have no measurement. You all have your existence in me, you have all your dimensions in me, but dimensions do not apply to me. So I am param with the perspective of them. So it's extra dimensionality, the outside, so the orthogonality of the dimensionality, so to speak. It does not apply. It enjoys a higher sense of, what is the word that I typically use? I use it.
Existence.
No, I use a specific word to talk about it. It enjoys a higher sense of reality, has a higher order of reality as compared to the object that is being talked about. That object has its existence in that, but the substance in which it has its existence is not subject to the attributes of the object.
Does Parampita Brahma relate to this? Like you said Parampita Brahma.
Now, of course, these words get used in many different ways, and that's why we did the Tattva Bodha first, which was the glossary that says the technical definitions of the word. So the technical understanding of the word Parama here is Paramatma, which refers to that which is independent of that is attributeless.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking. Parampita Brahma. So Brahma is related. Is it related to Brahma, and then Parampita? So it has higher dimension than all the
Well,
other.
I haven't even brought Brahma into this context
Yeah,
yet,
yeah, yeah.
and we've never quite talked about it. So let me set those two words aside. Because in this study, one of the things that you will have to be careful about is to not get stuck in the net of words. The word Pita, the word Brahma, the word together Parampita Brahma, you'll have to unpack the meaning of them to see exactly what is the context in which they're being used and what are they being referring to. When I say the word Atma, if I understand the meaning of the word Atma, I don't need the word Para. Atma alone is sufficient. Atma alone is sufficient. Here, Paramatma has been talked about within the context of Anatma Bandha. Atma itself stands for that which is free. Satchidananda Atma, that is independent, free of all attribute. Okay, what a loaded first sentence, right? Ajnana Yoga, and there's some important corollaries to this statement. It says the cause of this bondage is Ajnana. It is not karma. The karma itself was born out of the Ajnana. The bondage is not being born out of punyas and papas and actions, it is born out of Ajnana. And not Ajnana of an object that you do not know. It is not an object that I'm going to introduce to you and say, Mr. X, please meet him. You've never met him before. No, it's not a new object. It is an incorrect conclusion about an object, about the subject who is everlastingly present and attributeless. And the reason for this Ajnana is because it is attributeless, which is kind of difficult for a young mind to absorb. As soon as we're born, we're lost in the world of objects that have attributes and dimensions. And we think that everything has attributes and dimensions and definitions. Atma does not, because it has to be attributeless because they all exist within. That in which everything will exist will be free of that attribute altogether. It has to be. It will enjoy a higher order of reality. But another keyword here, perhaps the most important, is it is not an object external to you. It is not an object that you have not met before. In fact, it is the reality of who you are. Tava. The teacher is saying it's not a new object. Not only is that it's not an object, it's actually you. The main subject who I'm talking to is the Paramatma who has been misunderstood as Atma. So watch what happens in the second sentence. Tayoho. Sanskrit is a beautiful language. Beautiful language because it has singular, dual, and plural. So there is a pada, which is one leg. Adau is two legs. Right? So we have singular, dual, and plural. We didn't really, most languages have singular and plural. They don't have a dual. But in this beautiful language, I think they kept dual because a lot of the things and a lot of the rituals are done by couples. Two people sitting together performing the rituals. So it became easier for them to, rather than saying plural, that there are 5 people, there's a special ritual for the couple. So they have dual. Tayoho, between them two. Tayoho does not mean between all of them, it's between those two. Between which two? Atma. Between those two, Tayoho, Viveka. The ability to distinguish between those two. The ability to be able to discriminate between the two. What is Atma and what is Anatma? Udita. born of that discrimination, the ability to distinguish between that which is an object and that which is the subject. Bodhavani, it's a poetic language now, a fire of knowledge. A fire of knowledge. It is contextual, it is somewhat poetic, but it's, they're going to use it in a very nice way. Tayoho, between the two of them, Viveka Udita, born of discrimination, the ability to be able to say, yes, this is Anatma, yes, this is not Atma. That Viveka, that's why it's called Vivekachudamani. Right? Tayoho Viveka Udita Bodhavani. The Bodha is again intelligence or discrimination. The ability, the knowledge to be able to do that, the fire that is born of that, prada hit, it will burn. Burn to ashes. What? Ajnana karyam. What led to that incorrect conclusion? It will burn. This discrimination is the knowledge that will burn those incorrect conclusions, samula, along with their roots. They will never be reborn. They will never ever be reborn. Very poetic and powerful way. It's a very powerful verse to start off with. When the teaching is about to begin, right? So the teacher has said, okay, here, I will throw everything at you in one shot. I'll put it to you this way. You are in a poorly lit room in a village, and you have seen a rope, which you thought is a snake. Fair enough, and you are very scared. And now I bring in a light. Once I bring in the light, you realize that's a rope, that's not a snake. What happens when I take that light away? Do you again become afraid? That's not going to be possible. Why? Because brother hates samulam. That ajnana karya, that confusion, that incorrect conclusion that had been made has been burnt away along with its root. Even if I remove the light now, you will not be confused about whether that rope will not become a snake. Just because the light has gone out. Because it's gone altogether. Brother, that's why he threw the word samula. He doesn't want you to think that while you are reading the book, you are going to say, I am Atma, I am Atma, I am Atma, I am Atma, I am Atma. Book looks like I am Atma. That won't happen. So it's permanent. The answer is permanent as long as Tayoha Viveka. You have the ability, Viveka Udita Bodhavani, born out of discrimination, the intelligence, which is like fire, will burn along with the roots, Ajnana Karya. What is that Ajnana Karya? It's the incorrect conclusion. Of course, if I can discriminate between Atma and Anatma, the story is over. Because I got to the end of the story. I know what happens in the end. I figured out the story altogether. This is why it is referred to as Vivekachudamani. And there are several of our Prakarana Granthas are referred in the same way. So for example, Shankaracharya has also written Drishya Viveka, which is same, Drishya, the difference between that which is seen and the seer. That which is seen, that has attributes, Anatma, and the seer, the one who has no attributes. The ability to distinguish between the two is Drishya Viveka. Tattva Bodha that we talked about. Then there is Atma Bodha, he's also written. So all of them are telling you that first of all, the problem we have to get to the heart of is an incorrect conclusion. It is not a limitation of my intellect. It is not a limitation of my intellect. It is not the result of a papa karma. It is not the result of a punya karma. It is literally ajnana. And not ajnana means like I have to go and study another object. It's ajnana where I have understood, oh, I made a conclusion about something without ever examining it properly. The human being has a knack for making conclusions about things without adequately evaluating, without adequately considering them. So if I don't consider something carefully, I may make an incorrect conclusion about it. The thing that I have not yet properly investigated is actually myself. I need to investigate myself. I need to understand who am I, what makes me tick, what makes me different, What are the different parts and parcels of this Jiva Atma to be able to understand what conclusion am I actually making? So the student is going to say, where is this Bandha coming from? The student will ask a ton of questions in the next verse. But what the teacher will do is they'll start off by what is the Sthula Sharira, what is the Sukshma Sharira, what is the Karana Sharira. Once again, we'll go right back to our origins where we will start understanding, investigating the Jiva. Investigating anything requires the use of a model. Because with the territory, investigating anything requires the use of a model. In this case, the model will be rudimentary. The model will be a 5-element model. Yes, you can have a 110-element model and a 320-element model, as many elements as you like. This will be a rudimentary 5-element model because in the end, the model is going to tell me that it is not that. The models are about anatma. There are no models for atma. The models are used to explain anatma. Models do not apply to it. Why? Because atma has no attributes. If it has no attributes, how am I ever going to know it? If it has no attributes, anything you know, pick anything you know, pick it, and you will say, okay, the way I know it is because I know its attributes. When you say I know something, what you really mean to say is that you know its attributes. Do you know a rose? Yeah. Okay, if I ask you a tougher question, do you know what's inside the cell of the rose? Well, that depends. If you're a person who knows what's inside the cell of a rose, you'll say, yes, I know what it is. Okay, then I'll have to take a step back and change the topic, right? But what it comes down to is when I say I know something, I know its attributes. So how am I ever going to know something that has no attributes? The answer is not as an object. I will never know it as an object that appears in my intellect. But it will always be present as myself, the one who is seeing my intellect itself. The one who is aware of intellect itself is the one that I'm talking about. That subject, in the presence of which every other object and its attributes will be revealed, is the attributeless Atma. And it'll take us a few verses to get there because he will first explain what is the Sthula Sharira, Karana Sharira, the Sukshma Sharira, then there'll be a few verses about Maya, and then you'll arrive at the point where you'll say, okay, now let me introduce or remind you what incorrect conclusions have been made about this Parama Atma, that is you. That is truly the subject that I'm talking about. Tayoha Viveka Udita Bodha Bahani, the fire that is born, the fire of knowledge that is born of that discrimination will burn away. Samula, Ajnana. What is the Ajnana Karya? Well, it was the incorrect conclusions. It will burn away all the incorrect conclusions. When my incorrect conclusion is gone, how can I not know? Just because you took out the light again, I'm not going to confuse that rope again with the snake. I know it is a rope. I saw it. I've seen its reality, and I will no longer be confused again.
So, how do we get that Viveka?
This is what we're going to. It's a long text, many verses. So Vivek, it's a good question. Let me answer. I'll answer. It's not. I don't want to make a small. It's a serious question. How do I get Vivek? In order to get Vivek, you need to be able to identify. First of all, the first step in any Viveka is investigation. You're going to have to make the sankalpa that I'm going to investigate this thing, which means that you will invoke that thing in front of you, and you will start analyzing its attributes. What is it? What is it not? What is and what it is not? So we'll start off with the Sthula Sharira, that which you can see, the physical body. Then we'll invoke the Sukshma Sharira, that which you cannot see as an object with a physical form. We'll invoke the Manas, the Buddhi, the Chitta, the Ahankara, all of them will be invoked. Then we'll invoke the DNA, the Karana Sharira, the laws of nature that are hidden behind them, which are never manifest as individual objects. Have you seen the law of gravity floating around as an object? No, but the law of gravity is inferred that it is present. The two objects are attracted to each other by a certain law of attraction. I can see that. But the law of gravity is not an object walking around that I can say, hey, Mr. Gravity, can I talk to you? It is not manifest that way. It is manifest as an effect. Even when the two objects are not there, the law of gravity is present. It is just not manifest yet. So we'll have to invoke all of them, and that Viveka will be born about looking at the individual attributes, Sthula Sharira, the Karana Sharira, the Sukshma Sharira, Maya, and then we will arrive at a point where we'll say, in whose presence are all of these aware or awareful or conscious? In whose presence am I being aware of all of these? And then we'll start the subject matter of Atma. And that Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, that is the underlying reality of this universe, the underlying reality of the Jivatma will all be talked about. There's a lot of verses left. We have just started the subject. We have just arrived at the point of investigation. Okay, this is all I wanted to talk about today. So we can now sit down and have a chat if there are questions and comments. Otherwise, we're good.
I've heard of this analogy of this torch. That if you're in a dark room, okay, and if you have a torch, you cannot see the cells of the torch in the light of the same torch in a dark room. So, keeping in mind that analogy, suppose we are in darkness, which represents ajnana. How can we know ourselves within? Because if we cannot see the cells of the same torch that we are using, then how can we know ourselves when we are in darkness?
Oh, it's a good question. So the question is, I'll put your question in generic terms and you'll see what you're saying. What you're saying is that I have an instrument of knowledge, right? In this case, in your analogy, it was the torch. That instrument of knowledge I can use to shine light and investigate something, right? I have instruments of knowing here, I have instruments of knowing here, I have instruments, I can shine them at different objects and figure out what they are. How am I ever going to shine it upon itself? And the answer to that question actually is that this is something that does not need an instrument for it to be revealed. The instrument itself is not needed for this to be revealed. So how does that work? I'll ask you a question and you'll see what I mean. Are you alive?
Yes.
And the question is, how do I know that I am? Who answers the question I am? Which instrument do I need to investigate that I am? My mom didn't tell me. My dad didn't tell me. They're happy that I am. It's not my brain that is telling me I am. I am, and the brain is functioning in my presence. I am, and the feelings are there in my presence. This I am doesn't seem to be revealed by any instrument. In fact, I will set down that instrument for a second and I'll realize that I am, in fact, that instrument itself was being revealed by that I am. The light that is in the room is bigger than the flashlight. It was never a dark room. It was a very well lit room. The flashlight will actually fall very short because it's flooded with light everywhere. That light is the light of Atma, the one that does not need to be revealed. The first verse that Vivekachudamani will, when it gets there, the first verse it will use for, I'll tell you, it's a beautiful verse. I just looked at it a moment ago. And it was, Asti kaschit swayam nityam aham pratyaya alambana. Swayam nityam. It is self-revealing. No instrument, if it needed an instrument to be revealed, it would become an Atma right away. Because it is the one that doesn't need to be illumined by anything else. It is that awareful consciousness in whose presence all the instruments are functioning. So you are not going to turn around this instrument and look at it because it is impossible. But you'll have to set down the instrument and become aware of the light that is flooding the entire room.
The point is we are not aware of all these things, right? So how do we eliminate it?
No, so we're not aware as in you have not yet investigated it. You have not yet studied.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why there is a grantha, there is a pramana grantha, there is Veda, there is Upanishads. That's why they are there, so that you can ask the question. And once you have asked the right question, the Granth will be all over you trying to explain it to you what it is that you're looking at. And that's why Shabda Pramana, the knowledge in the form of words, is extremely important to point out to us, hey, the conclusion that you made that this room is dark, that was incorrect. This room is flooded with light. Darkness is an object in this light.
So what it is the lack of that Vivek makes us to come to the incorrect conclusion.
Yes.
Right? So if Tava is the Paramatma, now connected with it is not something external that is us. So if the Paramatma is not is attributeless or is present, the lack of Vivek is causing incorrect conclusion. Then where is that Vivek? What is the source of that Vivek?
What is the source of the
The
Vivek?
Paramatma is already there.
Correct.
And lack of Vivek is causing us to go to the incorrect conclusion. So then, what is the source of Vivek?
The same as the source of Ajnana, the Jivatma themselves. So, Paramatma has no incorrect conclusion about itself.
Yeah.
But Paramatma does not speak. Because it is attributeless, it will never speak. It will not give an answer to a question because for it, it would say the question does not exist as an object, as far as I am concerned. The confusion is for the Jivatma, the one who has made that superimposition of Anatma and Atma. And because of that superimposition, a source is needed in order to clarify. And if you look at it carefully, all we are going to do is define what is Anatma. And by the process of elimination, everything will get eliminated as Anatma. What will be left alone will be Atma. But you'll never be able to put an attribute on it. It will never be defined. You will never be able to point a finger to it and say, there it is. There is Atma, because it will never have an attribute. But it will never be one thing that you say, I don't know what it is, because it will always be self-revealed. And it will always remain attributeless. It is one of those beautiful things of this teaching, which is very real in the sense that Viveka will truly only help you understand Anatma. Because Atma cannot be, it has no attribute. How am I going to? So the Kena Upanishad says, Yan manasa na manute ye nahur manomatam tadeva brahmatvam viddhi nedam yadidam upasate. Yan manasa, from which the mind returns along with words. Yan manasa na manute, it is not that which is comprehended by the mind. Ye nahur manomatam, it is the one that is holding the mind altogether. Tadeva brahmatvam viddhi, know that to be Brahman. Nedam yadidam, not that which you worship. Nedam yadidam upasate. Directly out of the Kena Upanishad that tells you just that. The mind is not, the mind is the flashlight. It is not the one that is going to reveal it, because the flashlight is in the hands of the one who is truly the sentient, the basis of all sentiency, the basis of all sat, the basis of all chit and anantam. So it's a big topic. We'll get there. It'll be a lot of fun to explore, to study Vivekachudamani. And that's why these granthas have survived thousands of years, because the knowledge that is in them is infinite, because it reveals the infinite. Although it is in the words and it is in a specific language, the words and the specific language can only point you to Anatma and tell you, this is Anatma, move it. This is Anatma, move it. And then you'll be left with nothing. And then it'll say, wait. Oh no, not nothing. You're left with everything. You're left with the one in whose presence this entire exercise was happening. And look at that, it has no attributes of its own. It is existence, it is consciousness, and it is limitless. It pervades matter, space, time. Everything is pervaded by it equally. It does not distinguish between anything. It doesn't even need the attribute param placed in front of it. It is just Satchidanandatma. And even Sat, Chit, and Ananda are not its attributes. They are only lakshanas. That's the way we are able to get to them. And it will never be an unknown object. It will always be the one that you know the most and truly love the most. Um, Good. I think it was a good discussion. We brought it. We were gone for a long time, so we'll continue. Next Friday is November 3. I'll be here. November 10th, I'll be here, and then November 17th will be not possible. And then the Friday after that is Thanksgiving.
It's November 2.
2 and 9, I'll be here.
So does this Viveka and all go back to the Tattvamasi and Mahavakya?
Absolutely, absolutely. In